South Carolina's prison system, the use of social media so frowned upon that a single status update could be enough to land an inmate in solitary confinement for years. Not kidding here. That was the case for one inmate whose use of Facebook got him 37 years in solitary confinement. I'm not even sure how it's possible. But this case is actually far from unique. RT correspondent Manuel Rampolo takes a closer look.
In prison, breaking the rules usually means a pretty harsh punishment. But what if breaking the rules included updating your Facebook status? And what if the punishment for that was 37 years of solitary confinement? As crazy as it sounds, that's exactly what happened to this guy, Taheem Henry. In 2013, the South Carolina Department of Corrections determined that 38 Facebook updates made by Henry would amount to 13,680 days in disciplinary detention, roughly 37 years. That's right, and apparently this is fairly standard for the South Carolina prison system. According to a report by the Electronic Frontier Foundation, hundreds of state inmates face solitary confinement for their use of social media. That's because, quote, creating and or assisting with a social networking site is considered a level 1 offense, basically on par with assaulting your cellmate. In fact, as the EFF was kind enough to point out, there is a whole list of rules a prisoner could break that would be less punishable than simply using social media. Consider the following. An inmate could start a prison riot, take hostages, murder his hostages, steal their clothes, and then break out of prison. And all of these things combined would land that inmate less level 1 offenses than simply updating their Facebook profile. And keep in mind, the punishment in this instance is solitary confinement, a common practice in American prisons, but one that the United Nations classifies as torture. There's also the added element of censorship of free speech against inmates. In this case, Facebook has participated in censoring or deleting the digital profiles of several inmates at the request of prison officials. The Electronic Frontier Foundation reports that since this policy was implemented in 2012, there have been 397 inmates who have faced disciplinary charges, with dozens of instances amounting to individuals serving upwards of a year in solitary confinement simply for their use of social media. The organization hopes that shining a light on this clearly disproportionate rule might lead to striking a better balance between public safety and the rights of inmates. Manuel Rampolo, RT Studios, Washington. In Utah, it appears lawmakers are living in the past, or at the very least working hard to bring back a little bit of the spirit of the old Wild West. That's because a new law proposed in the Utah State Capitol is aiming to bring back the use of firing squads for death row inmates. Yes, the firing squad, a method of execution not seen in the United States since, well, ever. Actually, there have been a handful of states where firing squads were ever truly legal. This includes Oklahoma, which is the only state where the practice hasn't been banned. In fact, while it seems like a thing of the past, since 1976, there have actually been 3 executions by firing squad in the U.S., all of which have taken place in Utah. The most recent was the execution of Ronnie Lee Garner, a Utah death row inmate who threatened to sue the state if they didn't kill him by way of firing squad. On June 18, 2010, Garner was shot to death by 5 anonymous officers with Winchester rifles. Since then, however, the state of Utah has taken a step back from the practice, mostly due to concerns over public image. But those days are long over. The new legislation approved by the Utah House of Representatives now moves to the state Senate, where, if passed, will bring back the old glory days of death by a barrage of bullets. The legislation reads that, quote, "This bill provides that if substances are not available to carry out the death penalty by lethal injection on the date specified by warrant, the death penalty shall be carried out by firing squad." Now, if passed, this legislation could also grant death row inmates a choice of how they want to die, a sort of choose-your-own-adventure kind of thing. But jokes aside, the death penalty on its own remains a hotly debated issue across all U.S. states, making Utah's motion to bring back firing squads all the more controversial. Manuel Rampolo, RT Studios, Washington.
Well, 2 people are dead in what's being called a superbug outbreak at a Los Angeles hospital. The bacteria is being transmitted through medical equipment used in routine procedures. Officials are now saying it could have spread to more than 180 patients. I spoke earlier with RT's Lindsay France from Los Angeles and asked her for the very latest.
Well, the bacteria itself is known as CRE. 5 UCLA patients are known to have been infected by it. 2 more, it's been confirmed by the hospital there, have died because of complications from this bacteria. Now, the hospital is also notifying 179 other patients who may have been exposed to the bacteria from October 2014 all the way up until January 2015. Now, it spread via a tainted endoscope that's often used by doctors. The endoscope is a tool that's threaded down the throat, and it's used to treat gallstones, detect various cancers, and solve digestive issues. So it's been zeroed in on that is the instrument where this bacteria came from. It's multi-drug resistant. It can spread through healthcare workers' hands, patient to patient. It's very difficult to fight off. In fact, according to a statement issued by the Centers for Disease Control just in March of 2013, it says the bacteria CRE kill up to half of patients who get bloodstream infections from them. So it's obviously being taken very seriously.
Really seems like the problem here is with the equipment. This isn't the first time there have been problems with these instruments. What sort of track record do they have?
Yeah, it was flagged up last year. In fact, the CDC alerted the FDA about potential problems with this endoscope in the fall of 2013 even. There were similar CRE exposures from this instrument in other hospitals around the United States. And the two scopes that were used in the processes that may have caused these infections have been obviously taken out of circulation. And there's a big decontamination effort going on so that it doesn't spread further, but also to figure out how it got to this point.
So one of the questions, obviously, whenever we talk about an issue like this is how do you prevent this from going on in the future so we don't continue to make the same mistakes that we've been making? What's being done to prevent it from happening as we move forward?
Well, LA County is heading up the investigation at UCLA, and the big issue here is the patients who were exposed in the past. They can still have it in their blood. So UCLA has issued free home testing kits for anyone who went through this procedure from October 2014 to January 2015. Now, a scary part of this is that the endoscope itself was cleaned according to the manufacturer's specifications, and from these investigations, it just wasn't good enough. So you can bet that these investigators are going to go all the way back to the manufacturer and have to change things so that this doesn't happen again. But of course, if this spreads further, we'll be keeping a very close eye on things as they unfold.
I'm glad that you're watching it for us. RT correspondent Lindsay France from Los Angeles. Thanks so much.
Jihadists from the Islamic State are not only fighting on the ground in the Middle East, the online world is their battlefield as well. And with the terrorists posting literally thousands of tweets a day to attract supporters, the U.S. is now aiming to step up its own social media presence. RT's Marina Portnaio explains.
These three images are in part helping ISIS recruiters lure Westerners into their fight.
A warning from CNN. ISIS is using kittens, Nutella, and emojis to enlist Western women.
Because they want people to believe their life on the battlefield isn't so different than yours.
Other than giving free publicity to the Islamic State's social media skills, the CNN news segment instantly became a topic of mockery on the internet. Ladies, if a stranger on the internet offers you kittens and Nutella, they might be ISIS, warned one Twitter user. According to BuzzFeed, the most trusted name in news garnered a fan base of ISIS supporters who posted a stream of photos featuring kittens snuggling with the hazelnut spread. Some even posing with Nutella. Problem is, the silly comments surround a serious topic.
It has a social media presence that can penetrate into the Western popular discourse, at least the popular discourse that exists on social media. And so I think it is quite serious because it really demonstrates that ISIS's reach is far more than their, quote unquote, boots on the ground there in Iraq and Syria and now possibly Libya and beyond, but rather that their presence actually extends into the blogosphere.
The social media savviness of the Islamic State has gained global notoriety. According to the New York Times, members and supporters of ISIS disseminate up to 90,000 messages a day to attract financing and recruits, a jihadist marketing machine so effective that the U.S. State Department is working on strengthening its social media mojo to fight ISIS online. More than 350 government Twitter accounts will now be coordinated by one agency, established to troll would-be terrorists and their recruiters while posting counter messages. The plan, however, garners its fair share of skeptics.
It opens up essentially a dirty war online that the U.S. intelligence community is going to be involved in. And how are we to know exactly what side they're playing and what side they're on? I think that that's a very fundamental question.
Considering the Islamic State's widespread digital footprint and its level of media sophistication, U.S. officials do acknowledge they have a tough job ahead. To win the war against ISIS may require winning the battle online. Marina Portnaya, RT, New York.
2 billion. That's the number of SIM cards produced by Gemalto, a Netherlands-based company who was apparently hacked by the National Security Agency and its British counterparts at GCHQ. Now, the hackers stole encryption keys that would give them unfettered access to billions, yes, billions with a B, billions of user data. RT's Laura Smith has more from London.
This is the latest revelation to come out of the Edward Snowden leaks, and it could affect pretty much all of us. Newly released documents show American and British spies hacked into the world's largest SIM card maker, giving them access to billions of mobile phones worldwide. The NSA and GCHQ hacked into Gemalto, a Dutch SIM card manufacturer. The company makes 2 billion SIM cards a year for clients including AT&T, T-Mobile and Verizon. This enabled them to steal encryption keys, which meant they could secretly monitor voice calls and data without either individuals, companies or foreign governments knowing. Calls made over 3G and 4G networks are automatically encrypted, but these keys live, according to GCHQ, in the phone. So unless you have an extra layer of encryption, all of your communications are open to spies. Experts say this latest revelation means no one can really trust the security of their mobile phone. There's no quick fix, they say, and mobile phone companies are hopelessly insecure. It's also unclear whether these attacks are still going on. It looks set to cause an international row in a diplomatic community still smarting from the last time the UK and US spy agencies were accused of overreaching their powers. The US's relationship with Germany soured after leaks showed Angela Merkel was the target of an NSA spying campaign. This time it seems certain that the spy agencies have violated Dutch law and probably the law in other countries too. Laura Smith, RT, London.
Now, Gemalto did respond to the reports on the SIM card hack, and in a statement, they said, "We cannot at this early stage verify the findings of the publication and had no prior knowledge that these agencies were conducting this operation. We take this publication very seriously and will devote all resources necessary to fully investigate and understand the scope of such sophisticated techniques." Now, I was joined earlier by Dr. Kevin D'Souza, Associate Dean for the College of Public Service and Community Solutions at Arizona State University, and Kina Fedorchak, a senior researcher at the Decision Theater, to discuss the latest on these Snowden leaks and other developments in the hacking world. So I asked them about the Gemalto hacks and if they were aware of these hacks and why the stocks tanked.
This is a challenge that all companies, organizations of all type. Here at the Decision Theater, we do a lot of research into and look into how federal agencies are preparing themselves for cybersecurity. But we're talking about private companies, private corporations as well. This is very important for them. I mean, you see last year with Apple encrypting their iOS 8. They're taking actions towards preventing this thing because, preventing access and towards encryption. The challenge is that the NSA, allegedly is and Great Britain is allegedly subverting all of this. So yes, to answer your question, they should be very worried.
And now let's turn to another story that's making more headlines. You may recall that back in November, the State Department admitted to having their email system hacked. Well, now we're 3 months into it. We're 3 months later. We're now finding out that they still haven't been able to source who the invaders are or even get them out of the unclassified email system that was hacked. Now, it seems that this is a case of the U.S. maybe having a strong offensive skill with highly developed cyber technologies, but playing defense seems to have been kind of difficult for the U.S. Why is it so difficult to stop these hackers?
Well, a couple of things. I think that I agree with your point that we have focused a lot on the offensive and not as much on the defensive. I think that the U.S. government is really, in its majority, taking steps towards ensuring cybersecurity. We have a report, Liberty and Security in a Changing World, published by the White House in December 2013. You know, in one of their key recommendations, recommendation 29, is saying that, you know, we as America and the federal agencies should take steps to fully support and not undermine efforts to create encryption standards. You know, that's just one example. So I think that you're right that the focus has been primarily on the offensive. I think that our government is just kind of getting their act together, so to speak, with cyber. And I think that private companies and corporations are also maybe a few steps ahead, but they still have a lot of work to do.